I had a secret crush on Julian for 3 years. It wasn't until after the national college entrance examination that my best friend egged me on to confess my feelings to him, and then I realized how much he disliked me. After that day, I blocked all his contacts and moved out of Julian's house where I had been living as a lodger. It wasn't until at a birthday party for my boyfriend's friend during my junior year of college that Julian cornered me against the wall and said, "Unblock me from the blacklist. Okay?" On the night after graduating from senior high school, my best friend encouraged me to confess my love to the school heartthrob in the adjacent private room. She said that if I missed that night, it would probably be very difficult to meet him in the future, and I should seize the opportunity quickly. But what she didn't know was that because of my parents, I had been living in Julian's house as the daughter of a friend since my first year of senior high school, sharing the same roof with Julian. We could see each other almost every day. When I first moved into Julian's house, Julian took care of me like a big brother. But later, for some unknown reason, he seemed to be a different person, being hot and cold towards me. Even if I tried all kinds of ways to please him, he just gave me the cold shoulder. So, I hesitated when Emma egged me on. I was afraid that if Julian found out about my little crush, my situation in Julian's house would become awkward in the future. "What are you afraid of? Anyway, you've had a little to drink. If he rejects you, we won't lose face either." As Emma spoke, she pushed me towards the door. She was right. I could take advantage of the alcohol to confess. If Julian rejected me, I could explain to him the next day after I sobered up that it was all a misunderstanding. With such thoughts in mind, I finally mustered up the courage. When I got there, Julian was playing Truth or Dare with several of his close friends in the private room. They were having a great time and we could hear their voices even from outside. I took a deep breath and then the sound of cheering and cat-calling came from the private room. Soon, I heard someone ask Julian, "Is there any girl who has made your heart flutter so far, and how far have you gone with her?" As soon as the words were out, those people started cheering again. With Julian's charm, he must have already gone all the way. Get out. Julian doesn't show much interest in women. He must have a crush on one of us. My heart was pounding like a drum. I was like a thief eavesdropping on someone else's secret, pressing myself tightly against the doorframe. After a few seconds, Julian's indifferent voice came from the private room, "Yes. Only up to third base." Julian's words instantly set the whole private room on fire. Everyone bombarded him with questions about which girl it was, which class she was in, and what her figure was like. I felt as if I had been struck with a stick outside the door and couldn't come back to my senses for a long time. If Julian had only answered the previous question, I could have narcissistic ally fantasized that the girl was me. But not to mention second or third base. Julian wouldn't even allow me to touch his reference books in his study. I knew clearly that Julian couldn't possibly like me, but when I heard with my own ears that he had someone he liked and they had almost slept together, my heart still ached uncontrollably for a few seconds. I was in a daze for a long time. When I turned around to leave, I accidentally bumped into someone coming in. "Olivia." The girl looked at me in surprise. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer. Afraid that making too much noise would alert Julian and the others, I scurried away in a hurry. However, their conversation clearly drifted to my ears from behind. "Luna, do you know her?" "Not really, but my brother knows her. My brother said she lives in Julian's house as a lodger. But Julian really dislikes her. It's just that she has no sense of propriety and often fawns over Julian in front of him, which is really annoying." I paused. So Julian disliked me so much. So in his eyes, I was so annoying. I didn't have the mood to stay there any longer. I told Emma and then took a taxi back. I cried all the way and finally even fell asleep in the car. Not long after I got back to Julian's house, Emma called me on WeChat. "Olivia. Something terrible has happened." "What's wrong?" My voice was still thick with a nasal tone after crying. Emma noticed something was wrong with me and asked if I already knew the news, which was why I was crying so sadly. "Knew what?" I asked with a choke in my voice. Julian officially announced his relationship with the school belle Sophia, on Moments. After saying that, she even sent me a screenshot of WeChat. I clicked on the screenshot. It was indeed Julian's WeChat account, along with the content of his official announcement and a photo of the school belle. I exited the call screen and clicked into Julian's Moments. But his Moments had never been open to me. After clicking in, it was completely blank, with nothing there. I asked Emma where she got the screenshot from. Julian rarely added girls on WeChat. I was only able to add him because Julian's mother added him on my behalf, saying it would be convenient for communication. Ma didn't have his WeChat at all. A friend sent it to me. I originally wanted to ask for you if he still had a chance, and then he just sent me a screenshot. Ma gritted her teeth. Then she comforted me again, Olivia, don't be sad. There are plenty of fish in the sea. We don't have to be stuck on Julian. There are so many handsome guys in college. Then we'll find someone who is more handsome, taller, and richer than him. I replied absentmindedly. Okay, got it. After hanging up the call, I cried for a while more while hugging my pillow. Not long after, the phone beside me rang again. It was Julian calling. In the past, I would have answered the call in a split second, afraid that Julian would block me if he got angry. But now, I suddenly hated the me who used to fawn over Julian. After I rejected the call, Julian called several times. But I hung up on him every time. Finally, Julian sent a voice message, "Where are you? Why didn't you answer the phone just now?" Hearing Julian's questioning tone, I suddenly remembered what the girl in the corridor had said. In the past, I had no sense of propriety and fawned over him, but it was all in vain. Now, if I still didn't know how to behave properly, I would be acting cheap. At home, getting rid of the habit of adding cute emoticons after the text, I only replied coldly with 2 words. As always, after I replied, he didn't say anything more. Looking at the chat records that I had been reluctant to delete before, the whole screen was filled with my own messages, as if I was acting in a woman's show. It turned out that when you dislike someone, you just don't want to talk to them. I had naively thought that Julian was aloof and not good at expressing himself. I clicked into his profile page, deleted all the chat records, and then resolutely blocked him and deleted him as a friend. I decided not to like him anymore. To comfort me who had just broken up, me asked me out to go shopping and watch movies almost every day. Coincidentally, when we were queuing up to get the movie tickets, we happened to run into Julian and his friends. What a narrow escape. Why do we run into them everywhere we go? Emma cursed when she saw Julian and the others. Especially when she saw Sophia standing beside Julian, she was even more furious than I. The one who had just broken up. I looked in Julian's direction. Sophia was chatting and laughing with Julian's friends, and the scene was very harmonious. This reminded me of the camping trip last summer. Julian was afraid that it would be difficult to explain to his parents if he left me alone at home, so he kindly took me with him. Not far from the tent, his good friend Henry, in order to play a trick on me, pushed me into the artificial lake when I wasn't paying attention, and I almost drowned. Now that I think about it, maybe this was because Julian disliked me, so his friends could bully me without scruple. Julian, isn't that Olivia? Did she secretly follow you here knowing that you were also coming to watch the movie? Someone pointed in my direction and said loudly. Julian turned his head and looked in my direction, frowning slightly. I quickly averted my gaze and pulled Emma, saying in a very low voice, "Let's not watch the movie today." She gave those people a disdainful look and said loudly, "Why not? Do they really think this cinema is owned by someone's family and only they can come and others can't?" My face turned a little pale. This cinema was indeed one of the properties owned by Julian's family. It was just that Julian was relatively low-key at school, and very few people knew that he was a super-rich second generation. I didn't want to be recognized as Julian's sycophant by his friends, so I asked Emma to change to another movie. 10 minutes before the movie started, I went to the restroom. When I came out after washing my hands, I saw Julian outside. He seemed to be waiting for someone. I pretended not to see him and walked straight past him. However, Julian grabbed my hand, pulled me back into the women's restroom, pinned me against the door, and demanded, "Olivia, what exactly did I do to make you treat me like this?" "I didn't follow you," I interrupted him. He probably thought it was a humiliation to be pestered and followed by someone like me, a sycophant. That's why he specifically came to the restroom to warn me not to pester him anymore. "I didn't follow you," I emphasized again, no longer being as cautious as I used to be in front of him. Ma saw that I was heartbroken, so she wanted to take me to the movies to relax. I've been trying my best to avoid Julian these days. I just hope that in the last 2 months I stay at Julian's house, I won't annoy him as much as possible. I just happened to come to watch a movie today, and they mistook me for a stalker. No one would want to suffer such injustice. What heartbreak? Julian frowned, looking confused. But I just felt extremely sad. I'm afraid he didn't know that on the day he officially announced his relationship with Sophia, I had my heart broken. It's okay if he didn't know. Anyway, I'd decided not to like him anymore. "Sorry. My movie is about to start. Please step aside." I mustered up my strength to push him away, opened the door, and fled. When Emma saw me running out in a hurry, she joked that I must have met a ghost. I shook my head and said no. I'm more afraid of seeing Julian now than of ghosts. After that day, I avoided Julian even more. As long as he was in a place, I would leave on my own. If he was in the hall, I would go back to the second floor. I also deliberately staggered the time for breakfast. Julian's mother quickly noticed that something was wrong between us. During dinner, she asked me if I had a quarrel with Julian. I replied, no, but I was so used to being controlled by Julian that in Julian's mother's eyes, I was the kind of person who wouldn't speak up even if I was wronged. She looked at Julian seriously and said, "Julian, did you bully Olivia again?" Julian, however, said irritably, "Didn't you hear her say no? Didn't I ask you to treat Olivia like your own sister? Why do you always like to bully her?" I said, "She's not my sister. I have no obligation to be her brother." Julian gave me a deep look, threw down his chopsticks, and went upstairs. I knew Julian disliked me, but I didn't expect him to say such words that made me feel so embarrassed right in front of me. I felt a bit awkward. I was like a clown, getting in the way between him and his mother. After Julian went upstairs, Julian's mother told me not to take Julian's words too seriously. I didn't say anything. Julian's words were like a thorn that pierced deeply into my heart. This meal seemed to last for a century. And every day after that in Julian's house became the most difficult days for me. I thought about moving out of Julian's house as soon as possible every day. But my parents had missions to go on and simply didn't have the time to pick me up and send me back to my grandparents in the countryside. They just asked me to stay at Julian's house until I went to college. Waiting for the exam results to come out became the only thing I was looking forward to during those tough days. Finally, on the 23rd, the National College Entrance Examination results were released. Noli and I made an appointment to meet at a dessert shop to check each other's scores. Unexpectedly, Miss scores in all subjects were excellent, and her total score reached 620 points. "Olivia, did you secretly study at night behind our backs?" Emma turned to me with a shocked expression. "What's wrong?" she said enviously, 690 points. Woo, woo. I can't even get such a score by praying to the gods, 690 points? I could hardly believe it. All along, my grades were only at the upper middle level in the class. It was just because I heard that Julian was going to apply to Beihang University in Beijing. In order to be able to study at the same university as him in the future, I stayed up late reviewing until 1 or 2 o'clock every night. After staying up late for several months, I finally got my reward. At this moment, I was actually quite grateful to Julian. Even though he didn't like me. It was undeniable that during the days when I had a crush on him, that feeling gave me the motivation to study. In the evening, I called my parents to share this joy with them. The next day, I received a courier gift from my parents. At noon, I figured that Julian should have gone out, so I prepared to go downstairs to pick up the package. As soon as I came out of the corridor, I heard the sound of an argument downstairs. I looked down out of curiosity. Julian, how could you treat her like that? Olivia is half a sister to you. Do you think you can be worthy of Olivia's father by doing this? Why can't I? She's not my real sister. It was you who forced me to recognize her as my sister from the very beginning. It was you who brought her into this house in the first place. Why is it suddenly my fault? After Julian finished speaking, as if he sensed something, he looked up towards the second floor. I was almost scared out of my wits and hurried back to my room. My heart was beating fast, and a sense of guilt and sadness welled up in my heart. Julian and his mother should have been getting along happily, but because of me, an outsider, he was not only forced to take on the responsibility of being a brother, but also pestered and liked by someone he didn't like. Anyone would have complaints in such a situation. After making up my mind, the next day I moved out of Julian's house. Julian's mother looked at me with my luggage, and was very worried. Olivia, tell Auntie the truth. Are you going back to the countryside to live because of Julian? I waved my hand and said it had nothing to do with Julian. I just missed my grandparents a bit. So I wanted to go back and visit the two old people during the remaining vacation. Seeing how determined I was, Julian's mother didn't force me anymore. She just sighed and told me to take good care of myself. I nodded and left Julian's house with my luggage. Before getting on the plane, Julian called me. I didn't answer and hung up directly. Even if I answered, he would just call to ask me why I left suddenly and made him be blamed by his mother for no reason. Afraid that he would call again, I blocked his phone number as well. A moment later, I let out a sigh of relief. It turned out that giving up on someone I had a crush on for 3 years wasn't as difficult as I had imagined. Not long after I returned to the countryside, I received the admission notice. To celebrate my admission to my dream university, I bought a plane ticket and flew to the countryside overnight. Looking at my two-story small villa, Emma was almost too shocked to speak. Olivia, you're actually a hidden rich second generation. I thought your family was so poor that you had to live in someone else's house. It turns out that I'm the poor one. I smiled. In fact, my family was only considered to have a little money. My father is the director of the fire department, and my mother is a journalist. Their annual salaries are quite good. But they are very busy at work and are rarely at home. They don't have the time to take care of me at all. In order to give me a complete childhood, they sent me back to the countryside to live with my grandparents when I was 2 years old. It wasn't until I was 15 years old that my mother was afraid that the education level in the countryside was too backward, so she went back to the countryside to pick me up and brought me to Shanghai to study in high school, and I lived as a lodger in a friend's house. Ma stayed for a few days, and we had a great time for those few days. Because she wasn't used to the local climate and environment, Me always stayed in the countryside for less than 3 days before going back. Before leaving, she asked me, why didn't you choose to study at the same university as Julian in the end? Emma knew that the reason why I had been working so hard was to apply to the same university as Julian. My score was clearly high enough for me to go to the same university as Julian. But I didn't apply there. During the days when I had a crush on Julian, I only knew to strive towards his goals and thus ignore what I truly wanted in my heart. That's right, I want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a pilot at all. I want to stay far away from Julian so that I won't be reminded of the most humble days when I was crushing on and trying to please Julian. But Olivia, I heard that Sophia cheated on Julian with his good friend Henry. And Julian has now fallen out with Henry. Although confessing now might seem like taking advantage of the situation, I really don't want you to have any regrets in the future. I knew that Emma felt sorry for me because she didn't understand what had happened between Julian and me. But I've decided not to like him anymore. During the 3 years of having a crush on Julian, there were both joys and sorrows. But a forced relationship is never sweet. Julian was able to fall out with his best friend because of Sophia. One can imagine how much he likes Sophia. I'm even quite glad that I didn't rashly barge into the private room that night to confess to Julian. At least I've retained a bit of my dignity. Ma seemed to want to say something more, but she looked at me and hesitated. In the end, she just said a few words of farewell and then left. 5 days after Emma left, I successfully registered at the university, determined to become an excellent doctor. After entering the university, I was even more diligent than when I was preparing for the college entrance examination. I went to the library every day to look up information. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, the college entrance examination was already something that happened 3 years ago. I thought that as long as I didn't take the initiative, I would never meet Julian in this lifetime. Until Saturday. My boyfriend asked me to accompany him to a friend's birthday party. Learning from past experiences, in order to leave a good impression on Lucas's friends, when we reached the door of the private room, I pulled him and confirmed with him repeatedly. How do I look today? Is there anything inappropriate? Seeing how nervous I was, Lucas pinched my face and smiled. You're so beautifully dressed. I'm actually a bit reluctant to bring you here. Hearing Lucas's words, my heart felt warm and sweet. I remembered that when I first started senior high school, I was called a bumpkin by my classmates for a whole year because of my dowdy appearance. Perhaps it was also for this reason that Julian's friends looked down on me so much. I just don't want to embarrass you. Don't worry. Others will only envy me for having such a beautiful junior as my girlfriend. I was amused by Lucas's words. I finally understood what Emma said when she advised me to find a boyfriend. With a boyfriend, you'll be as happy as if you've won the lottery every day. After entering the private room, Lucas proudly introduced me to his friends. He made me feel valued and favored. And the enthusiasm of his friends towards me also made me truly feel respected by others. I no longer felt nervous at first and quickly started chatting with the others. When the party was about halfway through, someone suddenly asked about the birthday boy of the day. Julian, didn't you say that your cousin would come to celebrate your birthday? Where is he? Why haven't we seen him? Julian scratched his head and said, my cousin said he's waiting for a friend of his. He might be a bit late. But don't be polite to me. Eat and drink as you like. My cousin is paying the bill tonight. What kind of friend is it that makes your cousin wait for him? Out of curiosity, someone asked. That's amazing. My cousin's friend's family is extremely rich. It's said that his monthly pocket money alone is as high as $1 million, Julian said with great envy. Damn. That rich. Everyone was amazed and envious after hearing this. I clearly felt Lucas's body tremble. Lucas's family background isn't very good. He even had to take out a loan to pay his tuition fees. His source of living expenses mainly depends on the scholarship he gets each semester. And he also has to take out a portion of his living expenses for his younger brother who is still in senior high school. Afraid that he might feel inferior because of his friend's words, I held his hand and whispered in his ear to comfort him. Compared to wealthy playboys, boys who are hardworking and motivated are more charming. Actually, it wasn't just comfort. Lucas is the most outstanding model student in our department of clinical medicine. He studies hard and has excellent grades. In the anatomy laboratory class, his anatomy videos are often used by the teacher as teaching materials for explanation. If nothing unexpected happens, Lucas will be a very excellent surgeon in the future. Lucas seemed to see through my thoughts. He stroked my head and said, Olivia, I just feel that I'm making you suffer with me. If my family background was better, I wouldn't have only been able to afford to give you a bracelet worth 100 or so yuan on your birthday. My eyes felt a bit sour. I thought Lucas was affected by the huge gap between the rich and the poor, but it turned out that he was just feeling guilty because he couldn't buy me a more expensive gift. Holding back the urge to cry, I raised the bracelet and waved it in front of his eyes. The bracelet is very beautiful. I like it a lot. Also tonight shall we give it a try? Miss said that the first time would be very painful. So during the year we've been together, the most intimate contact between Lucas and me has only been hugs and kisses on the forehead. Before I could finish my sentence, the door of the private room was suddenly pushed open. Then, two tall figures walked in from outside. After the guy came in, he looked around the room and said in a somewhat cynical manner, "There are quite a lot of people here. Cousin, you're finally here. Let me introduce you all. This is my cousin Ethan, the most outstanding pilot in the future, without a doubt." After hearing this, Ethan gave him an elbow nudge. "Come on. I asked you to introduce me, not to brag. What you said would be a joke in front of my friends." As soon as he finished speaking, we heard his friend's soft laughter. I was stunned and suddenly looked up at the man. The light in the private room was very dim, and my view was blocked by other girls, so I couldn't see his face clearly at all. When the girl moved away, the man's facial features and contours gradually came into view. Clatter. The moment I recognized it was Julian, my whole body froze. I never expected that the rich person they were talking about turned out to be Julian. What's going on? Hearing the sound, everyone turned to look at me. I came back to my senses and realized that the wine glass in my hand had somehow shattered on the ground. Lucas quickly smiled and said to them, "Sorry, I accidentally broke the glass." Then, he looked at me with concern. "What's wrong?" "It's okay," I said softly. My gaze involuntarily shifted in the direction behind Lucas. Even though he was blocking my body, I could still feel a burning gaze wandering over me. "Are you not feeling well somewhere?" Lucas noticed that my face had turned pale and was a bit worried. "Lucas, I want to go to the restroom." Actually, I mainly wanted to leave the private room as soon as possible. Although the light in the private room was insufficient, Julian would sooner or later notice my presence. I could imagine what an unpleasant expression Julian would have when he saw me. As I spoke, regardless of whether Lucas heard me or not, I picked up my bag and walked out. I hadn't walked far when someone followed me from behind. I quickened my pace. At the corner of the corridor, I picked up my bag and aimed it fiercely at that person. But before I could throw it, that person cornered me against the wall and pinned me down. "It's me." "Julian?" My heart started beating faster, and I was very scared. I thought it was a drunk man from another private room who was following me. He gave a low hum in response. Then he waved his phone in front of me twice, and his voice was full of magnetism. "Unblock me from the blacklist, okay?" I was stunned and confused for a moment. He had always been cold and indifferent to me, paying little attention to me. Now, with such an ambiguous tone, he seemed like a completely different person. So unfamiliar that he didn't resemble the Julian in my memory at all. "I don't understand what you're talking about." I pretended to be confused while actually knowing everything clearly and turned my head away guiltily. 3 years. You've had me on your blacklist for 3 years. His voice was hoarse and his gaze suddenly became deep and burning. I felt my cheeks turn hot. I wasn't mistaken. In the private room just now, it was Julian who had been staring at me. "Is that so? Maybe I accidentally blocked you by mistake when I was cleaning up the contacts in my address book." I felt embarrassed, with a sense of guilt as if my light could be easily exposed. "So, add me back?" Julian smiled faintly and didn't expose me. He matter-of-factly opened WeChat and held the QR code in front of me. But I had no intention of adding him back. I'm not so pathetic as to stick to someone just because they show me a bit of kindness. Besides, I already have a boyfriend. There should be proper boundaries and limits. Seeing that I didn't move for a long time, he lowered his stance again. "Unblock me and add me back." I stared at the QR code for a few seconds. Back then, I felt that I was too humble. Since he disliked me, there was no need for me to keep his contact information like a sycophant. I gave an awkward smile. "Julian, I don't think it's necessary. Since you find me annoying, why add me back on WeChat just to make yourself uncomfortable? Or is it that, in order to get back at me for blocking you in the first place, you also want me to taste what it's like to be blocked? If so, that's a bit childish." "Reason?" I took a deep breath and looked calm. Julian, we're neither relatives nor friends, and we don't even have common topics. Adding each other on WeChat would just mean there's one more person in each other's contact list. I didn't want to expose the fact that he disliked me. After all, our parents are friends, and I don't want to make the relationship too strained. Julian paused and said self-deprecating lie, not even friends. After a while, he let out a low laugh. What were you thinking? My cousin also plans to apply to a medical school next year. She asked me if I had any friends who are studying medicine and could give her some information about the school. I heard that you're studying medicine too. So I thought of forwarding your WeChat to her. I was embarrassed for a few seconds. Julian does have a cousin named Isabella who is in high school. That is to say, the reason why Julian lowered his stance to ask to add me back on WeChat, someone he disliked, was entirely for his cousin. Before I could refuse, Julian took my phone. He unlocked the screen with my birthday password in just a few seconds. I was a bit shocked. But after the shock, there was more bitterness. During the time I lived in Julian's house, Julian's mother would cook a meal herself to celebrate my birthday on that day, but Julian never participated. When you dislike someone, you probably even remember to dislike them on special days. I watched as Julian removed his WeChat account from my blacklist and then saw him approve the friend request for himself. Just then, Lucas suddenly sent a message. Afraid that he would accidentally click in and see the affectionate chat between Lucas and me, I quickly snatched my phone back. If you've added it already, give me back my phone. You're so nervous. Is he your boyfriend? Julian sized me up, and his voice sounded somewhat casual. I didn't deny it. I'm 21 years old. It's quite normal to have a boyfriend, isn't it? Compared to him announcing his girlfriend when he was 18, I'm rather late in getting a boyfriend. Is that so? Julian suddenly lowered his eyes, and his voice was hoarse. But Olivia. You said. Olivia. Lucas's anxious voice came, interrupting what Julian was about to say. My boyfriend is looking for me. Excuse me, please step aside. I walked past Julian and hurried towards Lucas. Lucas was worried. Why did it take you so long? I thought you fainted in the restroom. I shook my head and said I wanted to go back to school. Because of Julian. I didn't want to stay here anymore. Okay, then I'll send you back. As he said that, Lucas went back to the private room to say goodbye to his friends. But as soon as he went in, he was held back by others. It's rare for us to get together. We haven't even cut the birthday cake or sung yet. And you're in such a hurry to leave. That's not very friendly. Lucas looked at me outside the door apologetically. I didn't want to put him in a difficult position, so I picked up my phone and sent him a message. I can just take a taxi back. It's your friend's birthday today. Don't spoil the fun. Sorry. Olivia. Be careful on the way. Okay. As soon as I got back to the door of the dormitory, Julian sent to WeChat messages, "Are you back? Is it because you don't want to see me?" I didn't reply. I directly turned my phone on the table and went into the bathroom. He was right. I was indeed because of him. Seeing him would only remind me of my once humble crush. To my surprise, when I came out after taking a shower, there were suddenly over 99 unread messages on my WeChat. At first, I thought they were messages from the class group. It wasn't until I opened them that I realized they were all from Julian. Reply to the message? Did you block me again? Okay, I apologize. I'm disturbing you so late. But please don't block me, okay? Looking at so many messages he sent, I almost felt that I didn't know Julian anymore. Compared to the once aloof and taciturn Julian, the current Julian talks more, and there is a hint of humility in his words. I was taking a shower just now. I replied while wiping my wet hair. And less than a second after I replied, it kept showing typing. Olivia, is your boyfriend editing a thesis? I've been seeing the typing. For several minutes already. After a while, my roommate suddenly leaned over and teased. I glanced at my phone and said flatly, "He's not my boyfriend." I thought Lucas had made you angry and he was editing an apology letter, but who is he? Is he someone who wants to chase you again? No, Julian dislikes me so much that he couldn't wait for me to move out of his house. How could he want to chase me? He was someone I had a crush on in high school. Although I also don't know what's wrong with him today and why his attitude is so abnormal. What? Then you should block him directly. I've seen too many such people. When you liked him, he rejected you. Then when he sees that you've become beautiful and charming, he clings to you like a sycophant. Such people are the most annoying. After saying that, Juliet looked at me in confusion again. But then again, I've seen your graduation photo from high school. You're so good looking. How could he reject you? Rejected? Not really. After all, I never confessed. But being disliked is no different from being rejected after a confession, except that one step of the process is skipped. Looking at the 5 words at the top of the screen, I quickly edited a few words and sent them. When? Are you going to forward my WeChat to your cousin? It can be seen that Julian oats on his cousin a lot. At least it can make him lower his stance in front of me, someone he dislikes. Tomorrow. Isabella should be asleep now. Julian almost replied instantly, and then asked again. Are you free tomorrow? I was a bit unable to get used to Julian's abnormal behavior. I'm not free tomorrow. How about the day after tomorrow? I'm not free the day after tomorrow either. When are you free? Let's have a meal together. I paused and didn't reply anymore. No matter what the reason is for him to invite me to a meal, I don't want to have too much interaction with him anymore. Meeting him tonight was completely unexpected. If I had known he would be there too, I wouldn't have attended that birthday party no matter what. After Julian forwarded my WeChat to his cousin, he went back to Beijing University the next day. In the following week, the two of us didn't chat much on WeChat either. Just when I was glad that I no longer had to worry about seeing him again, the next day, I received a notice from the school leadership. The school arranged for the junior students of our department to cooperate with students from other schools in a rescue drill. According to the school's arrangement, I was assigned to the air rescue medical team. Before getting ready, Juliet came to me with great envy and said, I heard that this drill is going to be carried out together with the students from Beijing University. I also heard that those boys from Beijing University are all over 1.8 meters tall, super handsome, and their families are very wealthy. Olivia, I'm so envious of you. Later, you must help me at a pilot's WeChat. I was shocked and said, conduct a drill with the students from Beijing University? Isn't this supposed to be a rescue drill? Why is it going to be carried out together with the students from Beijing University? Yeah, I heard that it's a friendly drill arranged in response to potential sudden disasters. After hearing this, I had an ominous premonition in my heart. I prayed that Julian wouldn't be on the list of this drill. But the more I was afraid of something, the more likely it was to happen. As soon as I carried the medical kit to the assigned flight team, I saw Julian checking the circuits in the cockpit. My heart skipped a beat. Julian looked back at me. I quickly looked away. After a moment, he walked from the pilot's seat to the rear cabin and prepared to fasten my seat belt for me. I can do it myself. But it was my first time taking a helicopter, and I didn't know how to fasten these seat belts at all. Seeing me fumbling around, Julian let out a nice, low laugh. Let me do it. I awkwardly moved my hand away and turned my head. I felt his slender fingers sliding on my waist, and my heart was surprisingly flustered. After fastening it, Julian stared at me for several seconds before returning to the main cockpit. Then I heard the person in the co-pilot's seat teasingly say, Julian, is it her? Me? What about me? The girl who made you suddenly give up that opportunity to participate in this drill, is it her? That person suddenly looked at me. I tensed up, not understanding at all what they were talking about. Julian didn't reply to that person. When taking off, he just turned back and told me, if you're scared, close your eyes. I didn't close my eyes. I deliberately wanted to go against him. In the past, he could manipulate me at will. And I would obediently do whatever he said. This time, I didn't listen to him. I just took a deep breath and looked outside. Julian paused, smiled helplessly, and turned back to the main control room. This rescued reel lasted for a whole week and was completed very smoothly. In the evening, our dean also organized a celebration banquet. But I declined to attend, saying that I didn't feel well. First, I didn't want to stay in the same space as Julian anymore. Second, I had already made an appointment with Lucas. Today was our first anniversary of being in love, and we were going to spend it together. After having dinner with Lucas, we went shopping for a while and finally watched a movie. Halfway through, his head teacher called and told Lucas that his application for early internship had been approved and asked him to hurry back to school to prepare the materials. So we ended this date hastily. When he sent me back to the girls' dormitory building, Lucas held my face and kissed my forehead. Full of apology. "Olivia, I'm sorry. I will definitely accompany you to finish watching the movie next time." "It's okay. Your studies are more important." Although I was a bit disappointed, compared with Lucas's future, these small things were insignificant. Watching Lucas's receding figure, I wrapped my clothes more tightly and turned around, only to unexpectedly see Julian standing not far away. Julian looked at me, holding something in his hand. I stopped in my tracks, and a sense of guilt welled up in my heart for no reason. But then I thought, Lucas and I are in a serious relationship. Even if I'm caught by the person I once had a crush on, there's nothing to feel guilty about. I calmed down and walked towards him as if nothing had happened. Julian looked down at me. Maybe because he had drunk a little wine, his voice was unusually hoarse and alluring. "I heard that you weren't feeling well, so I went to buy you some medicine." He handed the thing over. "This is painkillers. Taking them can relieve menstrual pain." I suddenly looked up, feeling a bit surprised. I was indeed not feeling well, but I had never told anyone that it was because of my period. I was afraid of spoiling the mood, so I didn't even tell Lucas. How on earth did he know that I'm not feeling well? I didn't reach out to take it. Even though I was enduring menstrual pain at the moment, I didn't want to be misunderstood by others for accepting medicine from another boy. What's more, it was from a boy who disliked me in high school. He clearly disliked me so much before, but now he looks very concerned about me and seems to know me very well. "I'm in good health. I just made up an excuse because I didn't want to attend that party." Afraid that we would be seen if we continued to entangle, I quickly walked towards the gate of the dormitory building. But Julian had long arms and legs. He took just 2 or 3 steps and stood in front of me, stuffing the medicine into my hand and chuckling softly. "Are you really that afraid of being misunderstood? If you had a girlfriend, you would also be afraid that your girlfriend would misunderstand." I gave him a glare. "I don't have a girlfriend." Julian lowered his eyes and stared deeply at me. "Olivia, I've never had a girlfriend." I was a bit surprised. "What are you telling me this for?" I quickly averted my gaze. His gaze was so intense that I didn't dare to meet it. If he didn't have a girlfriend, what was the deal with officially announcing Sophia on Moments back then? And what was the deal with breaking up with his good friend because of Sophia? Do boys all like to be forgetful? I thought you would care. I was stunned. I was suddenly so angry that I laughed. "I don't care, Julian, I actually don't care at all whether you've had a girlfriend or not. I know that you had to be nice to me because of your cousin, but I have a boyfriend now. Please pay attention to your boundaries in the future. I don't want Lucas to misunderstand." After saying that, I hurried back to the dormitory. I knew I shouldn't be angry. After all, not all secret crushes have a happy ending. Even if Julian dislikes me, I have no right to blame him for not liking me. But what made me angry was that because of his dislike for me, his friends could casually hurt me and mock me, and now he appears in front of me as if nothing had happened. Looking at the menstrual pain medicine stuffed in my hand, I threw it into the trash can. At 1 o'clock in the morning, the menstrual pain tortured me so much that I couldn't fall asleep and kept tossing and turning. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore and got out of bed. Looking at the medicine that I had thrown into the trash can, I picked it up rather shamefully. The next day, when I was helping the teacher tidy up the equipment in the laboratory, Julian called me several times. As soon as I answered, I heard his joking voice. "You didn't answer for so long. I thought you blocked me again." I was silent for a long time. It was as if he knew that I would block him again after he went back to Beijing University. And then he kept bringing up the matter of me blocking him 3 years ago to make me feel guilty. I cleared my throat and changed the subject. Is there anything? I'm going back to Beijing University tomorrow. I was wondering if you're free tonight. Would you like to go out for a meal together? Not available. The two words flashed through my mind almost instantly. But when the words reached my lips, I hesitated. I just took his painkillers last night. If I deliberately avoid him now, it would seem that I'm the one who can't let go of the past. It's just a meal, like a meeting between old acquaintances. Choose a place and send me the location. I don't know how Julian found out which classroom I have my classes in. As soon as I came out after finishing my elective course, I saw him standing outside the classroom corridor. Because of his outstanding looks, he frequently attracted many girls to peek at him. There were even some girls who gathered the courage to go up and ask for his WeChat. Watching the embarrassment and sadness on the faces of several recognized beautiful girls after being coldly rejected by him, I once again felt glad that I didn't confess to him back then. Julian saw me and smiled as he walked over from the crowd. "Classes are over?" And the girls around us cast envious glances at me because Julian was walking towards me. However, I just felt uncomfortable all over. So I distanced myself from him. Didn't I just ask you to send me the location?" Fortunately, it was an elective course, and not many students from our department chose it. If I were seen by an acquaintance, even if there's nothing between him and me, there would be misunderstanding spread. I was just afraid that you would stand me up again. Julian's voice was deep, and there was a hint of a smile on his eyebrows. "I'm not that kind of person," I mumbled and walked forward with my head down. When Julian heard my muttering, he smiled and followed me. I didn't know before that Julian could actually eat spicy food so much. Out of the 6 dishes, 5 were spicy. But halfway through the meal, I realized I was wrong. It wasn't that he could eat spicy food well, he was just taking my taste preferences into account. All the dishes on the table were ordered by him specifically according to my preferences. Looking at the dishes I liked, I suddenly remembered that during the year I'd been in a relationship with Lucas. I almost forgot my own preferences. Lucas doesn't like spicy food. He said that eating spicy food is bad for the body, it's easy to cause irritable bowel syndrome, and it's also bad for the skin, so he asked me to eat less of it. Over time, in order to match Lucas's diet, I seemed to have even forgotten the food I liked. "Why don't you eat? Don't you like it?" Seeing that I didn't say anything, Julian suddenly spoke. I came back to my senses and stared at the boy who once disliked me. A certain emotion suddenly welled up. "Julian. Actually, you don't have to go to such lengths." Julian paused, and his eyebrows were raised casually. What kind of lengths?" I pursed my lips and decided to break the ice. "You invited me to dinner and even ordered dishes according to my preferences. You just want to get on good terms with me. You've noticed it too." Julian let out a soft snort, with a hint of a smile in the ending sound.